Thank you for having me here today and giving me your time and attention. I want to start off with something a little bit atypical for you guys. No charts, no data, no stress. Take a deep breath and just listen to me. It's 4 a.m. in the morning, and I am standing deep in the Zion wilderness. It's a crisp autumn morning. It's still very dark. I'm standing at the edge of this canyon, which descends about 400 feet down to the Virgin River. I'm there on this special hike that you can go on after you win a lottery. Only about 20 people or so are allowed per day in it. It's a completely unmarked territory that you walk down into. There's no signs. There is no trail. There is only one direction given to you, that you have to follow the river till you cannot follow it anymore, because the river dives underground. And that place where it dives underground is called the subway. And it is the subway that is highly sought after by nature photographers, such as me, because it's a hard place to get to, and you get a lot of bragging rights if you do. So I'm standing at the edge of this canyon. I turn to the park ranger and say, I'm alone. So in case I don't come back by 5 p.m., could you please come down and look for me? He laughs. They never look for people. So I descend down into the canyon. It's a beautiful walk. You have to maneuver the river. So there are boulders you climb up on top of. Some are as big as houses. You just wade through the river. I had my waders on. And sometimes you're fighting the current. And sometimes you just get lost because you don't know if you're going the right way. So you have to retrace another mile and then go ahead again. It's about a 13-mile hike. So I get to the end of subway and I take my pictures. And I'm super happy now, right? I did it. I can prove to all these male photographers, I can do it too. And so I'm coming back. And now it gets hot. You know, when I first started, it was really chilly. Now it gets hot. So I take off my jacket, put it around my waist, tie it around my waist, and I'm clambering up these rocks. Suddenly, the jacket gets undone, and it falls into the river below. By the time I go and retrieve it, the infamous iPhone is completely dead. Now, the only way I would have known how much distance to walk back was because I was taking my phone with me. I had tied a little red ribbon at the point in the river from where I would have to climb up the canyon again. So I figured now it's going to be hard for me to figure out how many miles I walked when I keep coming back. And as luck would have it, I got lost. As the sun began to set, so did the fear. I did not want to spend the night in the canyon alone. I was not prepared for it. It was going to drop precipitously, the temperature. And somehow the idea of being alone down there wasn't very appealing. So I put my backpack tightly around my body and started running. Running, trying to find this little red ribbon by the side of the river. As I ran, suddenly, my foot got caught on a rock. And before I knew it, I did a face plank right onto the granite. Lights out. I woke up to a warm, oozing sensation going down my neck, down my chest, and I knew what it was. I was bleeding. And in that instant, the physician in me was saying, mandibular fracture. You're going to get your jaw, wired. You're going to be sipping through a straw. You think you sprained your calf. You think you hurt your knee. What's going on? And the photographer in me was saying, Sapna, get up. Get up, stop the bleeding, and start hiking now, because it's going to be difficult to get up that canyon in the dark. So I got up, stopped the bleeding, and as I was doing that, I heard one voice, my mother's. And her voice said, is this necessary? That's what she always says when I get into trouble. Is this necessary? And that brings me to the point of today's presentation. Why do we do things like this? Why do we step outside our comfort zone? Why do we put ourselves in situations in the middle of nature where there is no one else? Because life is about finding those moments where you're in complete flow. For me, by the way, this is the first time that after I said my mother's voice joke, Nobody laughed. This is a very serious crowd, let me tell you that. Because usually everybody else laughs. Yeah, she's a physician too. So anyway, getting back to it, what photography does for me is it removes all other distractions. So when I focus on photography, I'm so lost in the middle of nature, so lost in the nuances of the light changing, how it's dancing on the waves, or how the surf or tide is coming up, how it's crashing on the rocks. I'm only thinking of the beauty of nature being presented to me, and all other distractions, that endocrine tumor board I need to prepare for is gone. I don't think of it anymore. None of the painful things I have to think of are around. There is only one other time, really, that you get to do something like that, where you focus so intensely on one thing that all other distractions, all other stress is removed. And that happens when you meditate. So when you find an art form that you can pursue with so much focus, what you essentially are doing is a form of meditation. And I can tell you that there is nothing in the world that would bring you more riches than being able to find those moments of Zen. So if we can move on to my pictures, I think now, since I'm just talking. Originally, when I started, let me give you a little bit of a background. When I started photography 7 years ago, I was mostly doing it as documenting because I was traveling with my kids and my family, and we went to all these locations, and social media has just come into vogue, and if you didn't post something, you weren't cool. So, I would take all these pictures and say, look, I'm having these cool vacations. What a great life I'm having. But as I posted more and more, and people started as I posted more and more and people started appreciating the art, my art gradually evolved from sharing experiences to creating them. From sharing what was present in nature to creating my own rendition of my vision. So it's not what you actually see, but it's actually the lens is a brush. The camera is just an artistic tool that I use to generate my images. And that's how it progressed. And before I knew it, I was having so much fun. It keeps me fit because I'm hiking for miles, so I have to stay fit. Last year, I managed to hike in 5 different continents, did a bunch of backpacking. It was just an incredible experience. And it brings so much joy into my life. When I'm hiking out there and I don't even have a proper bathroom and it's just terrible and it's cold and it's bitter, and I have to go through all this stress just to get one shot. And then I come back home and I walk into my office and there is a coffee machine, for God's sake. It's like heaven. I get to sit down on a plush seat. I look around at my colleagues and they look stressed and I'm going, this is so good. I can take a shower today. I mean, this is like nothing. This is not hard at all. And you just look at a few images, analyze, and how easy can this be? So I think when you put yourself in different situations and change your perspective, like rattle yourself up a little bit, it brings a fresh perspective into what life really is about. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love those really minimalistic experiences I have out in the midst of nature because they teach me to appreciate the greater good. And then when I come back, it's the perfect complement to have radiology and a secure job. So I have the best of both worlds. And that's how that dual profession has come about. I have been fortunate to have gotten to the point in photography where I'm considered a professional. I now give presentations routinely to professional photographers. And my pictures have been picked up by an international art gallery and are now sold in 80 countries worldwide and published in National Geographic, Outdoor Photographer, Popular Photography, most of the photography magazines. And it's just been a wonderful journey. So my only message, if there is one, is to say, please, if you can incorporate art into your daily life, whether it is music, whether it's photography, whether it's painting, singing, dancing, or even if it's just appreciation of art, it totally changes your perspective of life. And you will be far richer and far happier doing that than any startup. I guess we could play that now. This is supposed to be seen in a dark room with like a lot of music coming at you because the music is also very essential to it. So we don't have audio, so it's not going to have the same impact, unfortunately. So I have personally conducted international and national photography workshops, and I tend to participate in groups as well. I also now have a nice group of friends, so I'll shoot a mail and say I feel like shooting in Columbia River Gorge. Does anyone want to go? And usually somebody steps up. So there's an international community. We now have friends in Norway and all over the world. It's really cool to be able to connect with so many different cultures. It really opened up so many doors to have friends all over the world, especially with social media now. It's very easy to set something up and just travel. Oh yeah, sorry. Any other questions? Yes. Thank you. Right. Well, no, well, I think the primary question to answer is why are you shooting? If you are shooting because you want to experience nature, then it really doesn't matter what you have in hand, isn't it? You could shoot with an iPhone and you would still document the beauty of nature. The reason to use better gear is twofold. One, I actually use my pictures on the walls of the hospitals. And so uh, if you ever get a chance, a bunch of the Kaiser centers now have my pictures on the walls printed at around 10 feet size. So the resolution has to be very, very good. Therefore, I cannot shoot with my iPhone because I can't print something at that size. So that's one reason to step up in your gear if you're thinking of printing your pictures. Another reason you would have to step up in gear is if you're thinking of commercializing your photography. But if all you're doing is indulging yourself, then honestly, the camera you have in your hand is the best you can have. And it's not so much about the gear as it is in being in the state of flow to have creativity in you, to let your creative juices flow. There are plenty of iPhone photographers out there who are stupendous, and that's all they ever use. So yes, you could get some Photoshop Express. Photoshop actually does apps for iPhone, so you could download that and use it. But basically, the composition must work, and your creativity must come to life before you can have images that would emotionally connect with the audience. Yes. So first of all, I did not pursue photography till my oldest learned how to drive. Before that, I was shunting the kids to all these activities and driving something like 100 miles a day, really, between picking up for schools and dropping them off and their activities and everything. So the minute my son started to drive, I suddenly realized I had this entire time that I didn't know what to do with myself. And around the same time is when my husband presented me with my camera. And once that happened, and the kids got into high school, they were so happy I was pursuing photography because mom wasn't checking up on all the nonsense they were trying to pull. So it was a win-win situation for everyone. And my husband loves poker and running, so he's like, "Honey, when is your next photo shoot?" You know. So I, from family, I was able to. They're very extremely supportive, very loving, very understanding. I cannot take a camera on any family vacation. That's a set rule. But as long as it's not a family vacation, I get to travel. Now, finding time, one of the biggest limitations to me advancing more in photography is actually that, because I'm still a full-time physician. And the only time I'm able to pursue photography, for example, will be I set my alarm at 3 a.m., get up and see if there is fog over the Golden Gate Bridge. If there is, I rush in, shoot the fog, and then rush back to Walnut Creek and start my day. Or like I'll be looking outside, there are clouds. Okay, hope you finish the day at 5, hope the sun sets at 7, so you can rush to the regional park and start shooting. As far as international travel goes, my husband gets only 2 weeks off. So, and I get around 10 weeks. So I get 8 weeks to travel. And then I take all of my time for extra shifts as time off. So I manage about 10 to 12, 10 weeks at least a year. And I travel like crazy, or it's all spent on photography. It may not necessarily be photography. I'm actually backpacking. For example, I have a trip coming. I've just backpacked in the Canadian Rockies. I'll be going back to the Yukon, getting dropped off by a helicopter, spending 2 weeks in the wilderness there, and getting picked up again. Really crazy adventure, but I think it'll be good. So stuff like that. You can make it happen if that is a priority, I think. And I miss a lot of parties. My social life, unfortunately, took a big hit. But yeah, it's all right.